there that I put there is pleasure. Pleasure. I have heard a lot of Nigerian speakers of English say player. Please, let us not pronounce it that way. If you go and say player, I used to wonder, is influence again, if you find that it's influence from their mother tongue, player is wrong pronunciation as far as this English word is concerned. It's pleasure. That's the correct pronunciation. So the problem of pronunciation here is indicative of the fact that such sounds are absent in their local languages. More examples are presented on pages 10 to 13, showing different categories of mispronunciation, such as omission of sounds, leaving out last consonant in words. Like I know our SRO music. When we are, I am not a music expert. I'm just learning. I'm in the choir. So I remember he always says, you people, it's not Lord. Lord, pronounce the consonant. That is, the last consonant of that word should be pronounced. Otherwise, people will think you're pronouncing something else. And that happens to really be common. And he said, so words such as God, Lord, should be emphasized. The last consonant should be emphasized. It's different. If you don't do that, you will not become like the French people. The rule of the French words, if they end with consonant, you don't pronounce it. So you cannot transfer that to English. It's a completely different language. So, and then she made some other examples, like words like help, omitting the H in some of the words. Some people will say help instead of help. Help. They will say help. And then some will say air. If they are talking of their hair, they will say air instead of hair. Hair. They will say air. And when they want to talk about head, they will say head instead of head. They say head. It makes no meaning in the language. Then you have, she mentioned more examples in some other categories, that the insertion of sounds such as the word Plumber. A lot of us will say plumber. It's plumber. Plumber, not plumber. That B has to be silent. The B is silent. Then SWORD, we say sword. It's sword. Sword, not sword. And words like DEBT, we say depth. It's depth. Depth. So in some of the examples she presented, there are certain sounds in some English words that need to be silent in pronunciation. And if you transfer that to your singing, you find that the communication is lost. Then we know that most of our African languages do not use words, this is technical now, the technical linguistic term, it's called consonant clusters. Consonant clusters is where you have two consonants coming together. They are very common in most of these European languages, and English is one of them. Instead, because we do not have that in our local languages, it is difficult. We now insert a vowel sound to separate the consonant clusters. And some examples will say, like BOTTLE. Bottle is bottle. We say bottle. Bottle. We have inserted a vowel sound to break the consonant clusters. Then, and so on and so forth. So many examples, because I don't want to take our time. So, still in that chapter 2, talked about the introduction of an imaginary H for some speakers, where non-native speakers you find them really adopting this kind of phenomenon. For example, the word EAT, which is eat, they say heat, heat. You see, they put an imaginary H there. Then when you say ANGER, which is anger, they say hunger. They put an imaginary H. And there are several examples she presents. Of course, it's not possible to enumerate. So I now move on to chapter 3. The broad title of this chapter is Making Music a Global Commodity. Making music a global commodity. She intentionally puts that title there because of the language in use, the language of focus, which is English. Like I told you a while ago that it's a global language. It's the proved through research that is the most widely used language. And the author in this chapter emphasizes that music is a global commodity. The author's statement that actually caught my fancy in this chapter, as I quote from her text, I quote what caught my fancy, said, therefore, excellence in music delivery could be achieved when a native speaker perfectly understands the song rendered in English by a non-native speaker. End of quote. It fascinated me when I read that portion. Furthermore, the author accentuates the need to take seriously into consideration the correct pronunciation in song production in order to make our songs global, especially in English, a global language that is most widely spoken in today's world. In order to further buttress her point, the author provides copious examples of some words that are commonly mispronounced, advising church singers and associated persons in the church to take note of this. The author provides a table indicating examples of wrong pronunciations and how to properly and rightly pronounce them. You can see this on page 15 of the text. And I will just mention one or two examples. The word medicine. Some people will say medicine. Medicine is medicine. And then you find the word VINEYARD. A lot of people say vineyard. Actually, the pronunciation is vineyard. Vineyard, not vineyard. And then the last but not the least example here is a musical word which says bass, but a lot of people call it bass. Bass instead of bass, but some people call it bass. More of such examples are found on pages 16 to 18. Other aspects of mispronunciation challenges which non-native speakers face are words like quiet and quiet, 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 then guide and guard. There are two different, when you transcribe those words, you see that the sounds are different. Guide and guard. Then breath, I mentioned this before, and breathe. One is a noun, the other is a verb. Breath is a noun. Breathe is a verb. But they misuse these words. Now, I want to also look at examples like words like vision. We say vision. Most Nigerian speakers say vision is vision. Vision. Decision is decision. Confusion, and so on. You. the sound should end it, not sh. Not confusion, not sh sound, but sh. Vision, confusion, decision, that is the Greek pronunciation. And there's a distinction I mentioned earlier on about the choir part, bass, not bass. Now, if you tell an Englishman bass, because there's another word with the same spelling, bass, B-A-S-S. This bass means is a type of fish in North America. So if you say bass to the native speakers, they will be thinking you are referring to that type of fish. There's a special type of fish. It's a freshwater fish found predominantly in North America. So that's the one you pronounce as bass, not bass. Bass is for the music part, then bass is the name of that fish. So they are two different things. Then you have B-E-D, bed, that you lie on. Then B-I-R-D, people still say bed. No, the pronunciation is wrong. It's bed that you lie on, and bird that flies. Bird, the sounds are different. So I now quickly move to chapter 4, which is titled Analysis of Non-Native Speakers of English Sound Extremes. And while the author pointed out the 44 sounds of English that are not in Nigerian indigenous languages that form the basis of these sound extremes, meaning that these sounds generally pose a big problem to the non-native speakers of English. So they now try to substitute some of these English sounds with sounds found in their own native languages to which they are familiar. And the author takes time to itemize these sounds and explains why they are problematic to the non-native speakers of English. These sound extremes are in two parts, namely general extremes and individual ones. The general ones are those sounds that are basically absent in the Nigerian indigenous languages, which are always mispronounced. And you have a lot of examples here, which you can find on pages 30 to 35. But I will just give one or two examples. The word C-O-O-K is, we call it cook, but it's the short U, is cook. Then book is book, not book. It's book, not book. Then the word H-I-T, we say heat. Remember there is H-E-A-T. That's the one you call heat. But H-I-T is hit. Hit is the short E. And sorry, we are not doing phonetics here, but that is what it is. That we have to get accustomed to, so that when we begin to sing, when we begin to imbibe the correct pronunciations, then we sing right. Now, talks about the word G-I-R-L is girl, not girl. Girl. So these are the extremes that we talk about. That's the general one. Then we have the individual extremes. These are ones that are peculiar to individuals. Some individuals have some kind of speech defect. So you have those, you have the peculiarities of certain individuals in the way they pronounce, and the individual extremes, because of the